welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about The Fall Guy, the new action comedy starring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. It is a fun one to get into, some really great puzzle pieces we got on this episode. And joining me, we've got Dayvid Figler, co-host of the CityCast Las Vegas podcast, and we had a lot of great puzzle pieces to get into on this one, so it's a fun one. So that's coming up here in a second. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm just squeezing this one in. We just recorded it yesterday, but I've got like 6 episodes already recorded, in the can, edited, ready to go. You can find them on the Patreon, by the way, produced by David Rose and Patreon, but they will be up on the main feed soon, so make sure you are subscribed. You'll find out about all these new episodes that are on the way. And if you're new to the show, maybe you saw the article in the Las Vegas Weekly. Thank you so much to the Las Vegas Weekly for doing that interview with me this week. But if you're new, if you're old, just make sure you're subscribed. You can follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, a really fun community of movie lovers. I keep it closed so that way none of the internet riffraff gets in, and we just have a nice, fun, movie-loving conversation in there. So check us out in there, the Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces Facebook group. And with all that said, let's get to this conversation about The Fall Guy. All right, we're going to talk about The Fall Guy. And joining me, we've got Dayvid Figler from CityCast. Dayvid, welcome to Piecing It Together.
Thanks, David. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you on. You know, I have been listening to that podcast for a while now. And as far as like Vegas-based podcasts that like get into this city, it's probably my favorite one to listen to. So it's really nice to get you on the show, and this should be a fun movie to get into. But for my listeners who aren't familiar with you and your podcast, tell them a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure, thanks. Well, it is a daily news and culture podcast. It's hosted by myself and a woman named Sarah Lohman, who is a food historian by day. I'm sort of a lawyer by day, but we're basically together a full-time doing this podcast with a team of 5 local. We've also got an executive producer named Sonia Cho Swanson. Our audio lead producer is named Layla Mohammed. And we do a newsletter that goes with as a companion piece for the daily podcast run by Rob Katchelrees. So that's kind of fun. And yeah, we do everything from food, hot trends, etc., to hot news stories that, you know, people are kind of talking about. And indeed, that's our catchphrase. And this is what Las Vegas is talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's never a shortage of stuff to talk about with Vegas-related things, and I'm sure,
and it's 20-minute blast, so that makes it, you know, a little bit more digestible. I think it's really a design meant for commuters, people when they're doing a workout session, doing chores or whatever. This is like a first to the marketplace idea of locally sourced kind of news and conversation on a daily basis, and we're in 13 different states, but we are 100% all local produced, local run as far as the episodes that people do here.
Right on, right on. Yeah, I think as the podcasting platform overall continues to grow, people are going to realize shorter can be better.
Although I love to ramble too, to my producer's chagrin, but no, I could talk about anything forever if I am given half the chance.
Yes,
so absolutely. That's my caution to you, my friend.
Absolutely. Well, we will edit as needed. But yes, you chose The Fall Guy when we were talking about movies to possibly get you on for, and you said you were a fan of the show. Is that the reason why you picked this one?
I was fan of Fall Guy. No, I don't know that anybody legitimately was a fan of the Fall Guy TV show.
Fair.
It's pretty schlocky, and it was done by a guy who did a lot of schlocky TV at the time, shows like BJ and the Bear. If anyone is old enough to remember that ridiculous premise that there's kind of a long haul trucker with a monkey as a sidekick. So yeah, it was a little cheeseball, but I remember it very distinctly as a young kid watching it, and it was I guess important to me to the extent that it starred a hero from another TV show, and I was just kind of following him from one show to the next. But it wasn't necessarily a good show or my cup of tea, and I probably kind of outgrew it. But yeah, when I saw that they were remaking The Fall Guy of all TV shows to adapt into a film, I was like, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's interesting, like, not to go too deep on a tangent, we'll obviously get into our puzzle pieces and the whole thing here, but like, why are we like going into IP that nobody remembers? Like, it seems like a weird thing. We're trying to get away from IP, but instead we're just digging deeper in, I guess. I guess to a point, though, that is a good thing. There's that meme that goes around every so often. It's kind of like, why don't we remake the movies that, people don't like, instead of
And make
like,
them better, right?
yeah, make
So
them better. So like, maybe this is
this
an example
works.
of that,
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, it's a weird choice, but and it's funny how many people go into this not even realizing that there was a show and that they think that it is 100% an original thing. I feel like that might come up later in some puzzle pieces, but we'll see. But let's start getting into it. What do you have for your first puzzle piece for the Fall Guy?
Well, this was hard, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before we started recording. Is that uh, the movie The Fall Guy does reference a lot of its own pieces
Sure.
in the movie, and so I want to avoid that because I think we're going to probably talk a little bit about that. And I also, obviously we have the source material, and I'm going to hold off on that piece too.
Mhm.
And indeed, I'm going to hold off on all kind of stuntman related pieces that might be in this movie. And I'm going to
Mhm.
go for my first piece with the movie Tropic Thunder, the
Sure.
2008 Ben Stiller directed, written film.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's on my list too.
Okay.
As far as like self-deprecating Hollywood goes, it's
Yep.
probably the best. But yeah, there's so many angles to go into on Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, pulling back the curtain of how movies get made, the epic film that they're making, this over-the-top movie that is the core feature piece in the movie, within the movie, right?
Sure.
The explosions galore, all that stuff. Then reality injecting itself into the plot. Not all the characters know what's up. There's a skeevy producer. Like all the archetypes are there. And a little bit played for laughs, and all the self-referential stuff that makes Tropic Thunder kind of a fun movie to watch. Also made, to me, Fall Guy a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, I think that is a great one to kick this off with. I'll also throw in there, I mean, you hit a lot of the points, but the Diet Coke guzzling producer,
Right?
which is that's me basically, but I identify, but except for I'm not evil. But yeah, it's such a fun movie though. It's so funny and it just so perfectly skewers Hollywood. The Fall Guy has big shoes to fill, trying to live up to something as hilarious as Tropic Thunder, but definitely a piece that belongs on this list. I'm going to go with one, and this is a stuntman related movie that I wanted to include on this, mainly because I don't always do homework for these shows, but I really felt like I should watch this movie in anticipation of The Fall Guy,
Hmm.
and that is 1980's The Stuntman.
Ah,
Um,
yes.
it is such a fun movie. Peter O'Toole is just so over the top in this as the director who will stop at nothing to get his action movie made.
Right.
And when the stuntman dies, well, actually, the lead of the movie dies, this escaped convict shows up on set and is just looking to hide out and is totally down to do the stunts and everything. And so he's like, this guy'll do. He looks just like he's a spitting image of the guy who just died. He will be perfect for it. And as we find out as things go on, we won't spoil the stuntman in case people haven't seen it, but they have some ulterior motives with this guy, and it is a really fun movie. Peter O'Toole, like I said, is great. Barbara Hershey's in there; she's awesome. It's a really interesting piece, and I feel like the blending of the lines between the movie within the movie and the movie
Right.
that we're watching, it really works really well in The Stuntman, and it does here in The Fall Guy as well. It's also one of these movies, and this kind of goes to Tropic Thunder as well, where like the movie that they're making, what even is this movie? It's just
Yeah.
so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
Metal Storm,
yeah,
I want to watch, of
I do too.
course. And we could talk about the pieces of Metal Storm as
Yes.
well. Maybe we'll have time for that. But yeah, Yeah, that's a good one. The Stuntman, the movie literally called The Stuntman. I guess it was taken seriously enough that I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with that guy. Peter O'Toole got nominated for an Academy Award for that.
And the director was
Deserved, but
nominated.
yeah, definitely
Yeah.
cool.
Crazy. That is the kind of movie that we don't see get nominated anymore, but absolutely deserved it. It's a really great movie. But let's go to another one. What do you got next?
Okay, so for the second piece, I had a number of I wanted to get another stuntman film in there. And I had a bunch of choices. I'm gonna gloss through a couple before the one that I actually landed on.
Hmm.
I think we have to mention Drive, which is
Sure.
another Ryan Gosling film from 2011. The stuntman side of it wasn't like really emphasized in that movie. I mean, Ryan Gosling happened to be a stuntman who was also a getaway driver, kind
Sure.
of showing the multiple skill set of a stuntman,
Hmm.
which is kind of like the original Fall Guy, which I still do want to talk about. The Another kind of like hybrid of the movie within the movie sort of thing happening with a stuntman prominently featured is 1995's Get Shorty,
Yes. Yeah.
the Barry Sonnenfeld film. The stuntman in that was like just sort of the lackey of the drug dealers, played by, I think it was one of his first major roles, James Gandolfini,
Sure. Yeah.
uh, played the stuntman Bear, who was kind of doing other stuff, and that was kind of fun.
He's so good in
I
that.
think maybe Once Upon a Time in America,
Okay.
the Tarantino film, of course,
Okay.
talked about
Yeah.
the buddy-buddy connection between the star and stuntman.
Hmm.
Obviously, Leo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, um, how those stuntman skills come in handy for other kind of chaos and adventure, and obviously they're making a bunch of different movies too in that. The thing is, on Once Upon a Time in America, I remember reading that the relationship between, um, the Brad Pitt and the Leo, DiCaprio characters was, sort of based on the relationship between Hal Needham, and Burt Reynolds. Now, Hal Needham
Right. Right.
was a stuntman who turned writer, and then ultimately director. Hal Needham he wrote, the screenplay for Smokey and the Bandit,
Right. Right.
um,
Right.
and then directed a movie called Hooper,
Hmm.
and Hooper is my second puzzle piece.
Okay.
So, it took me a way to get there, pieces to get to pieces.
Sure.
So Hooper was a 1978 film, starring Burt Reynolds and Jan Michael Vincent, and was directed, like I said, by former stuntman and also screenwriter Hal Needham. And it was just a loving tribute to the stuntmen, and they were setting up the big stunt at the end where, all the action was revealed from the big stunt, and that had a similar theme in The Fall Guy, but also just that relationship too. About how close a stuntman and his leading star can be. And that
Sure.
was one of the major plot points. Even though they didn't get along in The Fall Guy, and obviously, without giving too much away about it, proved to be kind of the nemesis there or the villain.
Sure.
The whole idea that he put in his contract that the Ryan Gosling character, Colt Seavers, had to be his stuntman throughout, and that they did have these kind of interactions outside of the movie and all this other stuff. I felt that that was kind of like a tribute to the stuntman.
Sure. Sure.
And Hooper, which was kind of the first one, uh, sort of started a wave of stuntmen featured movies, right? So like the one that the Peter O'Toole film came out afterwards, a couple years after, and then boom, right into 1981, you get the TV show The Fall Guy, which is basically the exploits of a stuntman who moonlights as a bounty hunter.
Yeah,
Classic
absolutely.
80s TV.
That is so 80s. It kills. But Hooper is a movie I've actually not seen, but I was planning on watching specifically because of that stunt man turned filmmaker aspect of it. And so
Yeah.
I definitely want to watch it. And also to speak to that puzzle piece, David Leitch, the director of The Fall Guy, is a stunt coordinator on John Wick and
Yeah.
some of those earlier action movies of the 2010s. But so that also connects right back to Hooper and some of those pieces you brought up. Drive, Get Shorty, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Um, Drive is
Oh, I said Once
so.
Upon a Time in America, didn't I?
You did actually, yeah. But there's so
Yeah.
many Once Upon a Times. It's like
Yeah,
it's
oopsie me.
we knew what you meant, but
Right.
but Drive is so influential on like everything that comes out nowadays. And Get Shorty, I actually just rewatched for the first time in years the other day, and I caught another little thing. The main character here, Ryan Gosling's character, says that the jacket he's wearing is from a Miami Vice action spectacular, and the Escobar character in Get Shorty is like, we should go see the Miami Vice action spectacular. So I think that's a little connection there too that we could throw in. So yeah, that's Get Shorty is so funny. It's such a great movie, and as is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
And I love Gandolfini's portrayal in that film of the stunt guy.
100%.
Like definitely shades of things to come with the range that he could bring to any character.
Absolutely.
Sort of the big dopey character, but also complex.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? You got a Ryan Gosling movie in there with Drive. I'm going to do also a kind of combination piece here, one of which has Ryan Gosling in it. A bunch of Shane Black. Obviously, we've got The Nice Guys with the best Ryan Gosling performance ever. He is so unbelievably funny in that. We also have Kiss Kiss Bang Bang as far as a mystery taking place in, that kind of Los Angeles setting around celebrities and Hollywood and,
Val
the
Kilmer's
nightlife.
last shining star.
Absolutely. Yeah. So good. So good. But that whole like Los Angeles mentality that is like on display between both of those movies. And another movie I was planning on rewatching for this, but didn't get a chance to, Last Action Hero, which Shane Black wrote, didn't direct, but as far as this blurring the lines between movie stars and action movies and what's happening in reality versus what's happening in the movie, I think it's another one that kind of belongs on this list.
Yeah.
What do you have for your next piece?
Okay, my next one's kind of a cheat. Though I guess I'm still holding off talking about, like, I want on some level, and I know it's not the format here, to like talk about, so I'm going to do this as my third piece, if I might. Just talk about the original TV show.
Sure.
As inspiration. So The Fall Guy, as mentioned, was the 1980s. It ran for like 5 seasons. It was always sort of middling in the Nielsen ratings on TV. And I'm more of a TV guy than a movie guy anyway.
Okay.
So
we won't hold that against you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Though I do obviously love some movies. So the star of The Fall Guy TV show was Lee Majors.
Sure.
Lee Majors had just, basically come off the hottest TV show of the 70s in a lot of ways, the $6 Million Man.
Sure.
There wasn't a kid, myself included, who didn't have a $6 Million Man doll, which is just silly, but we did. And it had like a little hand that you could roll back the arm to see his bionics, and you would look through the back of his head and see through his bionic eye. And then every kid did the same thing. I know because I was there. When you would have him fly through the air and do all his little bionic things when you were playing with the toy, you would always do the sound effect.
Sure.
The bionic sound effect, which shows up in different movies now and again as a gag. And it also shows up in The Fall Guy as a gag. At one moment, you have to hear it. It's so quick. But just a fun homage to Lee Majors during a fight scene in The Fall Guy in the middle of whatever the soundtrack is that's, augmenting the action. You hear that distinctive $6 million and there was no reason for it.
Yeah.
It was just like, we're doing a movie that's based on this Lee Majors TV show, so we're going to do another Lee Majors TV show and throw it in the mix.
Yeah, references. Why not?
Yeah,
they're fun. Easter eggs.
There was a lot of homage to that, to The Fall Guy. Obviously a very different plot. He wasn't a bounty hunter here. It was the same name of the character. It was the same name of the female lead, although in the original she was sort of a apprentice bounty hunter of sorts, an apprentice stunt person of sorts, helped with stunt coordinations. It was all very convoluted. The one big difference between The Fall Guy and TV show and the movie, to me, was the Fall Guy TV show definitely had sort of a light country vibe. They were kind of like living in a country world, even though they were LA people. And like in a lot of guest starring episodes, country stars of the day would pop up. And the Fall Guy movie was a little bit more like kitschy metal. I mean, Kiss is
Yeah.
definitely the driving beat and aesthetic of the music there. They just not only play I Was Made for Loving You in the opening sequence, but they do orchestral versions of it. They make
Yeah.
reprises of it. I mean, it is there constantly.
Yeah, it's like the theme song, basically.
Yeah, but the theme song of the original The Fall Guy is this kind of cheeky tune sung by Lee Majors, the lead, about how he's had a lot of women in his life, but he always kind of wins up second best because he's just the unknown stunt man, right? And there's a very funny line that opens up the original TV theme song, which is basically, I've been seen with Farrah, all this other stuff. And Lee Majors was married to Farrah Fawcett Majors, obviously.
Yeah.
And so there was all this kind of self-referential fun. And then in the remake, I was so disappointed. They took out all those references. They didn't do it as a straight cover. They had Blake Shelton come in when they very easily could have had Ryan Gosling sing it because
Sure.
everyone loves hearing Ryan Gosling sing any song at this point in history.
Yep.
There was a karaoke scene in the movie when Emily Blunt sang Against All Odds, another movie song. And they definitely, and this is a David Leitch thing, right? I mean, the music that's selected for the movie is very important to propelling the plot and defining the characters. And we see this a lot. Well, in Deadpool 2, which really was a nod to Deadpool 1, right? With all the way that the music was kind of placed in there. But no Ryan Gosling singing the lead on the theme song for The Fall Guy, the unknown stuntman. Oh, I was so disappointed, David. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, that would have been a great way to connect those, and yeah, like you said, I mean, everybody wants to see Ryan Gosling sing, and yeah, I think the setting maybe changed things a little bit, where they had to be a little cooler, kind of, like
Yeah,
so
maybe, but at
really
least Lee
fit.
Majors and Heather Thomas, who were the leads of the Fall Guy TV show, make a weird ass mid credit cameo.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't good, but it was okay. It was
a like, funny scene anyway, but
yeah, it was
weird.
A funny scene.
Yeah,
she was in a fright wig. I don't know what was going on there.
You know what was weird about that? Funny, I guess. I brought my dad to see it, and when Lee Majors shows up, he's like, "Oh, look who it is!" And then afterwards, I was like, "So, were you a fan of the Fall Guy?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, the show that Lee Majors was in. He was like, "There was a show." And like he was excited to see Lee Majors, but forgot that there was a show ever.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Lee Majors holds up great. Looked very good for a man who has to be at least 170. It's the bionics. They kept him young.
It's 100% true. Okay, so we do get into spoilers on the show, so we will get into spoiling what happens here. And I'm going to break format a little bit. I do that once in a while with a puzzle piece and do something. It's not a movie, not a show, not anything like that. And I don't know exactly when this was all shot, so this might be too fresh to truly have been something that was on their minds while they were making this. But I couldn't help think of the writer's strike last year and the AI protections that were a big part of the strike, a big sticking point in those negotiations.
Great point.
And the producer in this movie is trying to cover up this murder, or I guess, would it be a murder? I don't know if it's a murder, but whatever it is, but manslaughter. But regardless, but trying to cover it up by basically using AI to replace the face of the Aaron Taylor Johnson character with Ryan Gosling's character to make it look like he's the one that actually killed this other stuntman, and frame him. And because the studio was allowed to scan his face in like the first scene of the movie, they were able to do whatever they wanted with his face, which is exactly what Hollywood wants to do.
I don't think that's far off, David.
Yeah.
There was some blatant politicking in the movie.
Sure,
I mean, they were definitely making the cause that stunts should be a category in the Academy Awards. There's actually a little bit of dialogue between characters talking about that very issue, which is quite relevant. So no, I don't think it. I absolutely think that was a main plot point. And by the way, a main plot point, not unlike the TV show that had huge, huge holes in it. As a lawyer, and I know you're trying to distinguish between murder and manslaughter, whatever it actually turned out to be. Spoiler, there were 30 other people in the room who witnessed the original event. And so to try to frame Ryan Gosling with AI or otherwise to put his face on the video where the homicide occurs wouldn't have worked. It was just stupid. Or everyone in that room would have been arrested as a co-conspirator.
Sure.
But the plot point doesn't matter. It's almost like, who cares? It's definitely a fun ride.
Yes, exactly.
Which was the TV show to an extent. They always had plot holes in them. I mean, you had to solve the entire, essentially, the mystery or whatever was happening to get the guy back to his bounty within the 45 minutes of the TV show. So there's going to be plot holes.
Sure, absolutely.
Or cheats.
Yeah, we're not too worried about those.
So, I think that's a really good point. I think that there was definitely an inspiration and a message from the writers saying, yeah, this AI thing in movies, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Absolutely. Well, you got one more puzzle piece for us?
Well, I think we have to finish with all the internal references to other movies on my side of it. And I was feverishly writing in the dark in the movie theater to try to get them in. So apparently there's I had to translate my own scribbles in the dark.
Nice,
so I was trying to remember all the movies.
We should put that piece of paper on the Patreon.
That would be, it's like, what's Nothing Hill?
Yeah.
It's like Notting Hill.
Nice.
So, it's a love story. It's an action story. It's a film within a film. It's a parody. It's a comedy. It's everything. It's all the above. This is definitely a smorgasbord of different styles and genres in one sort of fun romp. But they do have characters who, because they're movie people, are referencing movies. And when action is happening in the film, one character in particular always says, well, this is like a blank situation or whatever, talking about the movies. And it's like, yeah, you're essentially ripping off these various pieces. So I'm just going to run down my list, David, and then you tell me if I'm missing any or if any really stood out as being a piece. How's that? Just breaking format again. Why not?
That's great. I love it.
Okay, so here's what I wrote down. Notting Hill, Love Actually, Last of the Mohicans, Pretty Woman, The Fugitive, Rocky, Fast and Furious, Memento, First Blood, Rambo. There was a little debate on that. Miami Vice, which big time. High Noon, Thelma and Louise.
Sure, absolutely. I'm trying to think if there's any you didn't mention there. The only one, it's a great list, by the way. The only one that I think is glaring is Mission Impossible, just Tom Cruise in general as a human being,
Yeah.
So,
also an adaptation from an old TV show.
There you go. Absolutely. So that is another way to pull that one in. But yeah, great list. And that's the thing, like, why... It's almost like, why even do a Hollywood-based movie without all of the self-referential humor and stuff like that? Like, that's where a lot of the jokes come from all that stuff. And
I guess you could throw in Alien versus Cowboy, too.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, yeah. So you said you haven't seen Metal Storm? I certainly haven't. Because I can't believe that that's like a real movie. Like, friend of the show, Sam Novak, pointed that out, and I just can't believe it.
Oh, I misspoke again. It was Cowboys and Aliens, right? That was the...
Yeah.
That's
Cowboys
what I meant. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, that seemed to be kind of the premise behind Metal Storm, although I looked up, and I guess Metal Storm is a real movie that also is a Universal property, but with the same tagline.
Yeah.
High Noon at the Edge of Darkness, or at the Edge of the Universe, or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's crazy that is a movie, like, because there's a few of these, like Tropic Thunder was one, The Stuntman, well, something I was going to bring up is Fool's Paradise, which is a movie that I love and nobody else loves. It was Charlie Day's directorial debut.
I know it from the trailer.
Everybody hates it. I love it. I'm wearing a shirt of it right now. But
see, because that always reminded me of what was the Peter Sellers film?
Being There.
Being There. Yeah. Just sort of the idiot sort of wandering his way to the heights of success.
That was a puzzle piece on that episode.
Okay.
But I love that movie. But that movie, they're making a movie, and it's just nonsense. You know what I mean? And so a lot of these examples are like movies that are nonsense within the movie, and sure, as hell. That ended up being a real one, Metal Storm. I definitely have
Yeah.
to watch it. I'm very excited to see that.
I did love the two Jason Momoa
Yeah.
shticks
Yeah.
at different points in the movie.
Yeah.
One being the Post-it shtick, and then the big spoiler in Metal Storm.
Yeah.
But fun. I mean, I felt they were having fun in this movie.
Hmm.
I don't think that they were trying for an Academy Award. I
No.
think it was just like, look, you got Ryan Gosling, who has chemistry with everyone, Emily Blunt, who has chemistry with everyone. Let's see if they have chemistry with each other. And sure, they did. And it was just fun watching that unfold.
Absolutely.
Plus, great
Absolutely.
stunts. I mean, that was. I
That's the
see it
draw.
being described in a lot of reviews as a love letter to stunt people, and certainly you can't deny that there were some fun, over the top, outrageous, comically self-referential stunts in this movie that were worth the price of admission. Of course, I
Yeah.
went to a place that had a discount rate, but
Yeah.
I would imagine full price even.
Yeah, even full price, still a good time. Yeah, I'll read down our main list of puzzle pieces. I probably won't get all of those little reference ones that you threw in there, but we did talk about Tropic Thunder, The Stuntman, Drive, Get Shorty, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Hooper, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Nice Guys, Last Action Hero, The Fall Guy, the TV show, The Writer's Strike, not a movie, Cowboys and Aliens, Metal Storm. I threw Fool's Paradise in there, and a whole bunch of little references of various movie related stuff. But yeah, I think we got into a lot of good stuff here. It's just a fun movie. Are there any like kind of closing thoughts? Anything we didn't get to mention that you wanted to bring up here?
Well, sure. As Vegas folks, there was one Vegas reference in there. Uh, and how can you do anything in the world without a Vegas reference
Sure,
somewhere?
of course.
So I wanted to throw this out to you because I didn't know if this was something a little deeper than just a rando thing. So when you go into one of the movie trailers, like on set, one of the stars trailers,
Mhm.
there's posters from all of the movies that theoretically were made in the movie by
Sure.
the actors or whatever, and
Right.
one of them was called Blood and Guts, uh, and I guess I'm trying to remember, I think that it was maybe hold on, it might have not been in the trailer, it might have been in the lead character's, the Aaron Taylor Johnson character's house or something, but it
Okay.
was
Yeah.
called Blood and Guts, and the movie poster was a picture of the Four Queens on Fremont Street in the
Hmm.
background. And it was just a flash in the movie, so I couldn't see if there was like uh, some kind of subtitle or if there's anything else in that picture. But I instantly recognized the Four Queens, and I'm
Sure.
just wondering, is that anything? Is that an Easter egg, or is that just a rando? We're just going to make up some movie posters, and we're going to have one as a Vegas action film.
Yeah, that is hard to say. I mean, Army of the Dead, the Zack Snyder movie, was a zombie movie set in Las Vegas. It wasn't very
Yeah,
good, but
yeah, yeah.
we could maybe
All true.
connect that with that. Maybe the Mahal brothers, who are Vegas filmmakers who make a whole bunch of very ridiculous, gory movies.
Yeah.
Let's throw
I was
that in
thinking
there.
big budget, so it wasn't gonna be like a Ray Dennis Steckler film or something
Yeah,
like that, who was a longtime Las Vegas resident and maker of horrific C-level films.
hmm yeah,
But I don't know, maybe it was like I gotta imagine that it was co-starring Nicolas Cage.
yeah, of
He can't do
course,
enough Vegas films. You could do a whole
absolutely.
thing about all the Vegas films of Nicolas Cage. I think he's up to 7,
That Yeah, that sounds about right. And some of them are good, but
and some of them are not.
yeah, some of them are not. That's true.
No,
Uh,
but it was fun. I mean,
yeah,
look, if you have some source material and you wanna play with it and you wanna put likable actors in it, this was a fun film for that.
yeah, 100%. Well, I think that does it for the Fall Guy. David, is there another movie you watched recently that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Um, well, like I said, I'm a TV person, but I like the long TV, like the miniseries or the self-contained are almost like a movie.
Sure.
And I gotta say, I really did enjoy Shogun.
Mm,
I thought that it was very theatrical in its presentation. I would have loved to see it on a big screen. It was a self-contained one season and done, essentially miniseries, and it was just lovely, really compelling. Also remake, I guess, also based on source material, which was the James Clavell. Is that the name of the guy?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, James Clavell. Look at me. I got
There you
that one
go.
right.
Killing it.
So, that was a fun adventure for me, and I do highly recommend that. If you're sitting at home and you're looking for something to maybe binge or go over that has all the theatricality of a decent movie or a good movie, Shogun worked for me.
Right on. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I'm looking forward to it.
How about you? What movie should I go see next?
Oh boy. I mean, there's so much out that I want to see. I haven't seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes yet at the time of this recording. I'm hoping.
Oh my
to go
God!
this
When that
weekend.
trailer came up,
Yeah.
I was like, how many times can you remake the same freaking movie? How many?
Did you like the last three though? Because the last three were actually
I like
good.
the last 17.
Okay.
I mean, there are. I think if we were to go and count right now, there's
Mhm.
probably over 24 variations of Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
There's no
possible.
surprises in those movies.
Yeah. Well, I want to see it. I want to see it just because I think the balls to try to continue after the last one, which I love so much, is like, how do you even top that? So I don't know.
There was a Mark
it.
Wahlberg version of Planet of the Apes that went for a while.
That we don't talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's where I bounced. I think
Yeah.
that's where I was just like, I'm done with Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that's the bad.
The
one.
prosthetics, and the makeup and all that just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool back in the day.
Yeah.
There is, and this is total tangential, and I'm really sorry, but there's this wonderful comedian named Dana Gould. And he has a bit that he has turned into like a YouTube phenom where he, in character of one of the original Planet of the Apes characters, Dr. Z,
Mm-hmm.
does a talk show in a very Tonight Show throwback, and it's called Hanging with Dr. Z.
Nice.
It's remarkable. He kind of works in all of the tropes and stuff of Planet of the Apes. I mean, he's in the character. He's in the full monkey makeup as he's just being this like swinging guy who interviews famous stars and stuff. I mean, it's a lot of Space Ghost kind of
Sure.
yeah, it's very throwback, but it's a lot of fun. But the whole time he's in Dr. Zaius's character.
Yeah. Oh
So
boy.
kind of amazing. So that's a high recommend. More small screen recommend, but Hanging with Dr. Z is a lot of fun.
All right. You know what? Since you asked, and since you're not as hot on seeing a new Planet of the Apes movie, I would say go see Sasquatch Sunset, which I believe is still in theaters at the time of this.
Yeah.
One of the most unique, weird movies you will see all year.
All right, so my wife had one question about that because I wanted to go see it when it was playing in the downtown cinema, and I think it's also at the Beverly Theater, which is kind of fun to go see movies there and support them because they're doing really good work.
Yeah.
She's like, does this movie have any dialogue in it? Because if it has no dialogue in it, I just don't know that I could put up with however long that would be.
Zero dialogue.
So that's what I thought.
Yeah.
All right, that's a solo. That's a
Yeah.
solo. I'll go. I want to watch it.
Yeah.
I think
It's
Jesse
wild.
Eisenberg can do some great things.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. So, David, this was great. Tell people where they can find you, the podcast, everything you're up to.
Oh, I appreciate that, David. So the easiest way to find us is lasvegas.citycast.fm. Also, we're on all the major formats. You just have to type in city, like we live in a city, cast, like this is a podcast, and the words Las Vegas, and they're all separate words, and that's when it will pop up. You could be distracted by other CityCast cities that are in our network. There's going to be 13 of us by June. But we are the one, CityCast Las Vegas, that will give you that Las Vegas flavor every day of the week, including sometimes weekends. We've been doing some weekend shows too. We're really putting out a lot of content right now. Just celebrate our 500th episode.
Wow. That is a lot.
Well,
of
when you do it
episodes.
daily, it goes pretty quick.
I guess that's true. Well, David, thank you so much for doing the show, and maybe we'll get you back again sometime.
I would love it, and we'd love to have you over on CityCast, David. So we'll find some other pieces over there.
Sounds awesome. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about The Fall Guy. Thanks to Dayvid Figler for joining me on that one, and thank you to all of you for listening. If you're enjoying piecing it together, of course, make sure you are subscribed wherever it is that you're listening. And maybe if that place happens to be Apple Podcasts or Good Pods or Spotify, somewhere with a 5-star button, you could hit that 5-star button and give us a little rating and review. It helps make sure that more people check out the show, and it is very much appreciated when you do that. You can also share the show, send in your puzzle pieces. If you thought of anything that we didn't bring up on the episode, I will read them on a future episode. I do these trailer episodes at the beginning of each month. I'll read them on the next trailer episode. And otherwise, just get in touch. I love hearing from the listeners, and maybe we'll even get you on an episode one of these days. We will see. You can follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join the Facebook group Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. And also, don't forget about our Produced by Dayvid Rosen Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, Awesome Movie Year, and from my music career. Lots of great stuff on the Patreon. It's patreon.com/byDavidRosen if you want to sign up. I appreciate you all just being out there listening. But if you want to support the show that way, it is very much appreciated. And speaking of my music career, let's close this out with a piece of music like I always do. And I gotta pick something big and upbeat and fast-paced and action movie-esque. And what should I play that fits that bill? I'm gonna go with a track called "The Night It All Changed." This is from this year. I'm actually doing a thing called, maybe some of you know about this, some of you don't. It's called the 24 for 2024 series. And what I'm doing is I'm releasing a new single on the first and third Friday of every month of this year. It's 24 brand new songs. I wanted to do a little something different this year. Instead of releasing another album, I just released a new album called More Content last year. I've got another new album coming out next year. But this year I had all these other songs, and they're great songs, and I'm super excited to put them out. But I didn't want to just do it as yet another album. I wanted to kind of try something different. So a whole series of singles, the first and third Friday of every month, a nonstop onslaught of new music coming your way. You can check me out on all of the streaming services. Dayvid Rosen is what you'll find me under. As we know, Spotify recently changed some policies, and we don't like Spotify very much. But, if you're listening there, that's fine, whatever. But anyway, I'm going to play one of the 24 for 2024 singles, "The Night It All Changed." This came out just a couple months ago, so I hope you enjoy it. You can find the full playlist of 24 for 2024 songs on all of the streaming services, and we'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.